Hello, everyone, and welcome to FCC's virtual event, Commanding Confidence: How Women Can Build and Leverage Leadership Presence. I'm your host, Katelyn Duban, and I am so excited to be with you here today. I'm a grain farmer from Southern Alberta, a storyteller, and a community builder. I have had the absolute privilege of celebrating the stories of women in agriculture through my podcast, the Rural Woman Podcast, since 2019. Due to the popularity of FCC's most recent four-part women series, they have decided to bring you another episode. I would like to thank you all for joining us here today. We are going to spend the next hour together, and I am so confident that you will learn how to command the confidence of others while being true to your authentic self. As we get started, I want to acknowledge that I am coming to you from my farm today, which is located on Treaty 7, the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Nations, including Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai, the Tsuut'ina Nation, and Stoney Nakoda First Nations. I give thanks to the original people of agriculture and sustainability. Without their resilience and sacrifices and knowledge of this land, we wouldn't be where we are in agriculture today. This recognition is more than an acknowledgement of territory. This is about recognizing Indigenous people across Canada and to honor and respect diversity and strength in all Indigenous peoples. Before I introduce our amazing keynote speaker, Lauren Sergy, there are a couple of housekeeping notes to make. This session is being recorded and a link will be sent out to everyone who is registered. So if you have to sneak away or want to share this with family or friends, it will be available to you in a few days. A recording of this event will be sent out to you in a few days through email. And if you have any technical questions throughout this hour, there is a blue support button on the bottom of your screen. Just click there and ask for some help. There is a chat on the right-hand side of your screen today. Be sure to drop us hello and tell us where you're dialing in from. And beside the chat, there is a Q&A box. Feel free to ask as many questions as you have for Lauren in there, and we will get to as many of them as we can at the end of her session. The Q&A is moderated, and your questions can be anonymous. Now, let me introduce you to our keynote speaker, Lauren Sergy. Lauren is a communications expert that has helped thousands of people become more effective leaders through skilled communication. She works with audiences and organizations in Canada, the US, UK, and Europe, including KPMG, 3M, Cargill, Farm and Food Care, rural municipalities of Alberta, and I have personally seen her at the Advancing Women in Agriculture conference, and she is absolutely phenomenal. She holds a master's in library and information studies, a bachelor in English, and a certificate in management development. Her latest book, Unmute: How to Master Virtual Meetings and Reclaim Your Sanity, is available at all online retailers. Please help me give the warmest welcome to Lauren.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here with all of you this afternoon. It's a great opportunity to be able to take this kind of content from one conference like Advancing Women in Agriculture, but then reach an audience of women all over Canada. So thank you for the opportunity.
I am so excited for all of these women to get to see you. I'm out of here, Lauren. Take it away.
Sounds great. The best example that I ever encountered of leadership presence actually happened when I was in grad school, when I was taking my Master's of Libraries course. And it was on the first day of my graduate studies. It was a very small faculty that I was part of, only 30 students. So we had this little ritual where the new cohort on the first day would be formally welcomed into the profession by the dean of our faculty. And of course, with all of us perfectionistic little nerdy students, that meant an awful lot. So we were gathered in a classroom with bated breath awaiting our welcome. And in through the doors swept Anna Altman. She was our dean. She was tall. She was regal. She had this wonderful shock of white hair that fell over one eye just like that. It was very Meryl Streep. And she came to the front of the room, settled down on the desk, gave us this imperious look, and said, "What you must come to learn and learn quickly is that sometimes good enough is all you actually need to succeed." And with that, 30 keen, eager, perfectionistic little nerds just melted into a puddle at her feet. She had us. She had it. That je ne sais quoi that we call leadership presence. And you might be able to think of someone like that yourself, someone for whom when she walks into a room, people look. When she speaks, people listen. She has that kind of Wonder Woman effect, although instead of a gold bustier, they might actually be wearing a cardigan or a pair of Carhartts, as the case may be. Now, some people come across leadership presence, which we also call interchangeably executive presence, very naturally. But those who wield it best, including the naturals, develop it and refine it so that they don't just turn heads, they command confidence. And this ability to get people's attention and respect and confidence with a look or an entrance or a word is an important communication skill. It's something that helps us foster a gut feeling response in the people who are around us that tells them that we have rather the qualities they need and want in a professional or in a colleague or in a leader right this moment. It's part of what makes someone rhetorically persuasive even before they open their mouths. It's a really good skill to have. Trying to describe what it is, though, what leadership presence is frankly a little bit like nailing Jello to a wall. Many people will say something like, "I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it." And then when they encounter someone with a lot of presence, they'll try to identify what it is they're responding to. And it's really hard. It's like as soon as you think you have it pinned down, it just kind of goes blah, 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 and changes shape into something else. This is part of what can make it tricky and intimidating to figure out how to get executive presence or leadership presence for yourself. Part of it is that there's no one look to it. And that's because presence really is as individual as the people who express it. That's why excellent presence can be someone like the famously and intentionally uncharismatic Angela Merkel, or her seeming polar opposite, the very famously charismatic Michelle Obama. Or maybe it's someone for you that you've worked with over the years, or you met at some professional development event or conference or retreat. They all have their own form of presence, but that doesn't mean that it's random. What we're going to be exploring today is looking at the elements of leadership presence so that you can develop and leverage your own. Now, I always find that it helps to start off with a definition. Anytime you're trying to get a handle on something, it helps to specify what exactly it is. And after years of wrestling with the question, what is executive presence or what is leadership presence? This is the best definition that I've been able to come up with. And we're going to break it down a little bit. Presence is first and foremost a communication strategy. It is something that you do, that you communicate with intention. It is deliberate. It is planned and practiced. It is something that you are doing to elicit a specific effect from people around you. And it's a communication strategy that specifically uses social signaling. This is commonly nonverbal type communications. It's the way that we hold ourselves, how we look, how we speak, how we interact with other people, but not necessarily exactly what it is we're saying. And all of this social signaling operates on a fairly subconscious level. And it's important to note that social signaling is external communication. It is not enough for us to feel like we have leadership presence or to feel confident because people can't read what's going on in our minds. We have to show them deliberately on the outside that we have these qualities. And we're doing all of this specifically to command people's respect and belief in your suitability as a leader, or as I popped on there, as a professional. What you're doing is constantly sending the unspoken message, I'm the right person for this, right here, right now. I'm the person you need, whatever the situation is, whatever the job or role may be. And I added professional in there because leadership presence is not limited to people in official leadership positions. It is not only executives who can wield executive presence. It can be carried by anyone in any position to increase their impact and effectiveness, particularly with their communication. I think of presence as being kind of everyone has their own individual diamond of presence. And there's many, many, many facets on a diamond. That's what gives it its shape. That's what gives it its sparkle. Developing presence means that you are getting in touch with the different professional and personal facets that are on your unique diamond. You're learning what they are and where they all are so that you can figure out which facets you want to turn towards the people that you're interacting with in any given situation. That way, they are receiving the brightest, best part of yourself for that situation that you're in. Now, these facets fall into 3 categories, which is what we're going to cover today. The first category are the key traits that just about everyone wants and expects to see in their leaders. The second set of facets are your audience's values. And by audience, I mean anyone that you're speaking to or interacting with. And the third set of facets is your own authenticity, your own authentic self, the elements of you that make you uniquely suited to do this thing at this time, and that you want people to see and understand about you at a fairly quick instinctual level. Now, we're going to start off with that first set of facets that I mentioned, the key traits that people are looking for in their leaders. In my work in communication and executive presence, I've found that even though leadership presence is a very individual thing, there are still these consistent personality characteristics or key traits that most people want to see in their leaders. Almost invariably, people want to see the following. First up, they want to see confidence. When we say, I know it when I see it, what we're typically referring to is confidence, and it tends to be the most identifiable element of strong presence. We read a lot into the appearance of confidence. When we see confidence, we assume that the leader is very certain about what they know, about what they think. We assume they're going to be decisive. They'll make up their minds about something, and then they're going to go ahead and do it. These are good things in a leader. No one wants a leader who is unsure about themselves or who waffles a lot. We tend to associate confidence also with power and authority, so we're more likely to follow along with what the leader has to say. But most crucially of all, and possibly most frustratingly of all, is that we associate confidence with competence. There is a cliche that says if you want people to think you know what you're doing, then act as if you do. The cliche exists because it's quite true. We really do assume that someone who looks like they know what they're doing does know what they're about. We give them the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes this can bite us in the backside when we find out later that they have no clue whatsoever and we're just faking it. But other times, it's actually a really reliable measure as to someone's competence. So your demonstration of confidence helps to show people that you know what you're doing. Now, it's important that you do not confuse confidence with arrogance. 2 different things. Can you have confident leaders who are also arrogant? Yes, of course, we've all encountered them, but I have encountered many, many humble, quiet, unassuming leaders who still demonstrate loads of confidence and still have great presence. So don't worry, showing confidence does not immediately make you look arrogant. The next trait that people are looking for is control. Now, I don't mean control over other people. I mean self-control, self-mastery, not emotionlessness. It actually helps if we can see emotions in our leaders. But what we want to see in control is that you are capable of demonstrating the right emotion at the right time. You are in control of your emotions. They are not in control of you. So you're able to perform calmly when your feet are being held to the fire. You can show grace under pressure. If your team is going through a really hard time or there's a crisis in whatever it is that you're doing, you're able to show other people concern and compassion even when you feel on the inside like you're the one who needs the hug. You can bring fire and energy to your team when they need a boost and a lift, even when you're feeling exhausted yourself. That is self-mastery. You can analyze a situation and then respond to it according to the needs and the demands of the people that you're with. The third trait that we're looking for is clarity. Clarity is all about clarity of thought. It shows intelligence. It shows good judgment. And we tend to judge clarity of thought based off of how easily we can understand the person who's speaking to us. Because in terms of communication psychology, ease of understanding and trust are very, very closely associated. So the clearer you are when you speak, the more we assume your head is also in the right place. Now, these three traits, confidence, control, clarity, not every leader is going to show all three of them all the time. We are, after all, human, but they come up with considerable regularity. And the way that we demonstrate them also has a lot of consistency and a lot of regularity too, because there are specific external signals through body language, through speech mannerisms that very clearly help these traits come across. And we're going to learn those right away. Now, I like these behaviors because they're relatively simple. You do need to practice them. They don't always come super easily to everyone, but they're pretty straightforward. They are also fairly easy to learn and to adopt. You don't need a personality transplant to use any of these social signals. So let's go through them right now. We're going to start with a critical body language signal that really helps to convey confidence and control. And that is that people with strong executive presence typically take up space. Their presence seems to visually fill the room. Whether they are 4'9" or 6'7", there's something about them that takes up visual space. And this really does convey that feeling of confidence. The easiest way to think about the impact of taking up space when you're speaking to people is to think of what we do when we're feeling nervous or anxious or insecure. We don't stand proud. Instead, we do the opposite. We collapse. Our chest goes down, shoulders kind of cave in. We tend to hold our arms close into our body. It's a very defensive, protective, don't look at me kind of look. People who are confident, who are comfortable and in control of being a leader, tend to have very tall posture. They have a very open posture, and they gesture wide away from the center line of their body. Let's look at some fantastic examples of this. Oops, space. There's the third word. One of my favorite examples is Indra Nooyi. She was CEO of Pepsi from, I believe, 2008 until 2018. So one of the most powerful CEOs out there. And she has immaculate presence. Yes, this is a staged photograph of her, but she carries herself like this when she's sitting, when she's standing, when she's walking on stage to do an interview. In any situation, she has very proud, very open posture, but her posture is completely lacking tension. That's what gives her that semblance of comfort and control in what it is that she's doing. Another example that I really like, and this comes into gesture patterns, is Jacinda Ardern, who was the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. She is quite a slight woman. She's not very big. To look at her just being normal, you wouldn't think that she could visually take up much space. But when she gestures out and wide away from the center line, and it's very engaging to watch. It draws you in. It's very animated, and again gives her that appearance of confidence, largely because she's taking up visual space. This pattern of taking up visual space is not new. This isn't a modern thing. You can actually trace it throughout art history in portraitures of really powerful people. One of my favorite examples of this is the portrait of Queen Elizabeth I. This is her depiction of when she defeated the Spanish Armada. Now, there's a lot going on in this painting because this is used to tell a story and to reinforce her power as a monarch. So you need to be able to see a lot of stuff around her, the Armada being defeated, the various elements that show regal power. But you also need to get the impression that she herself is filling the canvas. And they do this in lots of ways. A key way is through the clothing, right? Like there's that giant ruff. The bows on her sleeves, the bows alone have presence. And by all means, you're welcome to go out there and buy yourself the biggest damn shoulder pads in existence if that's what helps you feel like you're taking up space. I mean, a little bit of the 1980s dynasty look can always be fun. But we're going to focus on doing it through posture instead. And I'm going to invite you to do a little posture activity with me. It'll be brief. It's painless. Believe me, no one needs to see you doing this. You can do this standing or sitting. So if you want to stand up, go right ahead. Otherwise, stay seated with me. If you are standing, balance your weight evenly on your feet. If you are sitting, come away from the back of your chair. You don't want to be slouching. I want you to draw attention to your abdominal muscles. And yes, you have abs. I know you do. Say hello to them. Appreciate them because they appreciate you. I want you to engage your abs ever so slightly. Just a little click in. You don't want to do this. You're not doing a crunch. This is not confidence. This is constipation. It's not the right look and it's way too much work. Just engage them lightly, as if you were preparing to do a crunch or as if you were holding a basket of laundry right in front of you. Just a little click. With your abs engaged, I want you to bring your attention to the center of your chest, right where your heart is. Isn't that sweet? And I want you to take that midpoint on your chest and let it float effortlessly upwards just a bit, about 2 centimeters, not even 1/4 of an inch. Just a little float upwards. If your back is getting sore, it means that you're puffing your chest out. And we don't want to puff it out because we're not spoiling for a fight. Just very slightly rising it straight up. This is what I call proud chest. And I call it that because there's a time that everyone does it subconsciously. And it's when we're given a compliment that we know we've earned, that we know we deserve. So let's say that you did a really awesome thing for a client. You completed an outstanding project, or you're at work and you met a huge sales goal, or you did a really hard task going above and beyond, and you know that what you did was awesome. And then your client or your supervisor comes up to you and says, "That thing you did, that was pretty awesome." You go, "Yeah, it was." Rise right up through the chest, proud chest. Now, next, we're going to bring our attention to our shoulders. What I don't want you to do is pin them down. What you're actually going to do instead is totally relax them. Shake them out. Shake them out right in your chair. If your abs are engaged and you have that little lift in your chest, your shoulders are going to naturally square off and give you that nice open look that you're going for. No tension is needed or wanted. That's why Indra Nooyi looks so good, because she's not forcing her shoulders back. Then, and this is the last little tip, it's like a little bit of magic. Get your elbows, hard to see in the camera, but get your elbows away from the side of your body. Once again, think of what we do when we're tense. When people are nervous, they typically pin their elbows at the side of the body, but they know they should still gesture. So they end up gesturing with their elbows pinned, and it looks really weird. You kind of look like a T-Rex when you're doing it. If you get your elbows away from the side of your body, it not only visually opens you up, it makes it easier to gesture out wide, out of the center line, doing those big gestures that Jacinda does. You will note that Indra is standing with her elbows away from her sides. You will see, even in the portrait of Elizabeth, that you can see the upholstery between her arms and her sides behind her body. That little bit of elbow space makes all of the difference, and it radiates confidence and control. So this carrying yourself in this proud, confident way is a key body language signal that most people with strong leadership presence do. The next signal that we're going to do to communicate confidence, control, and clarity is an engagement signal. Specifically, it's eye contact. Once again, I want you to think about what we do with eye contact when we're nervous. We look away. We don't want to engage with the thing that's causing us discomfort or that is creating difficulties, so we look away. People who have a lot of self-mastery, though, who have a lot of confidence, will typically make steady, easygoing eye contact, even if they are being challenged. Here's a wonderful example. That's Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. He has fantastic eye contact. The key here is to make eye contact, to engage with people or whatever it is you're dealing with without staring them down. Because staring people down gets really weird really, really fast. I'm doing it into a camera and you're probably not liking it that much already. If you find it difficult to hit that sweet spot between making eye contact but not staring people down, or if you find eye contact is very uncomfortable for you to make, you can follow a pattern of 8 seconds on, 1 second off, 8 seconds back on. You can time this to your breath. Basically, you make eye contact with someone for approximately 8 to 10 seconds. This is around 1 to 1.5 easy breaths in and out. And then look away thoughtfully for a moment, then come back to the eye contact. It's that coming back element that helps people feel like you're engaged and interested with them without it becoming oppressive. And that engagement, that interest, typically makes people feel like you are in control because you're in control of your attention, you're focused on them, but also that you have very clear thinking. And that's that impression of interest. Something to note here, though, is that there are very different eye contact etiquette principles in different cultures. Most Western business and European cultures that we encounter favor eye contact as a signal of interest and attention and respect. But for many other cultures, many indigenous cultures, many Asian cultures, lots of others, excessive eye contact can be considered rude or aggressive. So if I've made you a little bit nervous, there is a really easy way of dealing with this, and it's to pay attention to what other people are doing. If other people are not engaging in a lot of eye contact, or if other people seem uncomfortable with the eye contact that you're making, that's fine. Give them a little bit of eyeball space. Don't force it on them. Look more towards their ear or right around the shoulder. This is a deferred glance. It still demonstrates interest, but it doesn't stare them down. And that is how you can balance out that showing interest without being rude with the eye contact. Takes a little bit of practice and a bit of attention, but you can master this, I assure you. The last element to show that control, clarity, and confidence that we're going for, that most people engage in with strong leadership presence, has to do with your speech. You want to focus on having speech that is clear and decisive. This really matters. Again, we trust what we can easily understand. So clarity and decisiveness in your speech boosts the impression for other people that what you're saying is reliable, that what you're saying is truthful, is trustworthy. It makes you sound thoughtful. We want this in our presence. And again, there are specific mechanics that help to communicate this clarity and decisiveness. First up, if you are a speed talker, and it's okay if you are, I was a speed talker for a long time too, but if you're a speed talker, or if you find you talk very fast when you're under stress, which is really common, I want you to consciously slow down your rate of speech. You don't need to overdo it. You don't need to speak in a slow and boring and patronizing fashion. What you're going for is a comfortable conversational rate, as if you were having a conversation with someone that you respect. Not your best friend, because you'll go too fast, but someone that you really respect. The problem with speed, you might say, well, that's just part of my personality. I appreciate that, but the problem is that it tends to lead to mumbling. It makes it very hard for other people to understand speed talking, especially if they have even a small amount of hearing loss. Mumbling is no good. The other problem is that we speak really fast when we're anxious or under stress. Fast heart equals fast mouth. And that can cause the people listening to us to become anxious and stressed as well. It basically scuttles that impression of self-control that you want to give off. So just go at a comfortable conversational pace. Don't be afraid of pausing. Don't be in a rush to answer questions. Let people see you think. Pauses are really great because not only do they slow you down, but they also give you the chance to choose your words more carefully, which tends to make you clearer in expression, and it gives people time to process what you're saying and understand you. Of course, this all bumps up clarity. Finally, I want you to drop your voice slightly at the end of your sentences. Finish with a downwards inflection. You don't need to go all James Earl Jones on people. That's weird. It's still within your natural range of your own voice, but you want to go down at the end and not up. If anyone here has heard of uptalk, it's a little habit that some people have of going up at the end of sentences instead of putting it down. So it sounds like you're asking a question instead of making a statement. And it doesn't work well for leadership presence because when we're constantly going up at the end and we're not asking a question, it comes across as if we're checking in with other people for approval or to see if we've gotten things right. So that impression of confidence and control goes way down. All you need to do is to picture the period at the end of your sentence, whatever it is you're saying, and then hit it with a very slight down drop. This is something you can easily practice by reading out loud. A little hack that you can think of is you kind of want to speak to people as if you're speaking into a really terrible takeout intercom, right? Like the kind where you cannot understand what the person on the other end is saying, so you overdo it a little bit. I'd like a large fries and small chocolate shake. You're going for that, but not quite as exaggerated. And a good way to learn what this sounds like, the sound that you're going for, is to pay attention to news anchors because they train these speech patterns. It's part of their job. They need, whoops, sorry about that. They need to sound clear and decisive, and so they practice it. Two of my favorites are Adrienne Arsenault from CBC, as well as Christiane Amanpour from formerly BBC, now for many years CNN. Very clear, very articulate, very decisive, and you can practice speaking like them to obtain that kind of clear speech for executive presence yourself. Now, as I unintentionally gave you a little bit of a preview of, these are not the only traits that you want to express. Confidence, control, and clarity, and these behaviors that go along with it, these are the table stakes. That's your starting point in terms of leadership presence. But as I said right from the start, leadership presence looks different on different people. Even though everyone should be standing proud and making eye contact and the rest of it, you also need to add nuance and color to your presence. And you're going to do this first, not by looking inwards at yourself, but by looking outwards at your audience, the people that you're speaking to or interacting with who will be seeing your presence. And specifically, you want to think about your audience's values. Now, it stands to reason that when we're thinking about leadership presence, we're thinking mostly about us, right? The attention is on us. And that's true, but the people who are paying attention, they're the ones that decide ultimately whether or not you have good leadership presence. They're evaluating your presence according to their standards. And their standards are going to be heavily influenced by their values, who they see themselves as being, what they see as being admirable about themselves or about the group that they're a part of. The reason this matters for your leadership presence is that when people are seeing a leader and they're taking in someone's presence, they kind of want to be looking into a mirror, one that is reflecting back the best parts of themselves. They want to be seeing the best of themselves in you. And when they can see that through your appearance or your speech or your behavior, they feel like there's a connection, like you understand them, that you get them. And that's going to help them feel like you are more reliable and trustworthy as a leader yourself. Now, values and identity, they can vary considerably between different groups. You can't assume that what is held in high esteem by one group is going to not be completely repugnant to a different group. Here's an example. I speak to a lot of different groups, so I need to be very conscious of differences in audiences' values. When I'm speaking to people from the financial sector, especially banking and investing, I have found by doing it a lot and by interacting with them that many of them place a strong value on competition and success. They want to hear words of success. They want to feel a competitive edge among their leaders and with the people who they're interacting with. When I'm speaking to people from the education sector, on the other hand, that would not fly for them because they're much more about cooperation, collaboration, very careful decision making, not being excessively risky. So if someone comes in with all of the bravado and the risk and the success words and the competitive behavior that would be admired in the financial sector, the education sector would find that really distasteful. And it's not because either of them are wrong, it's just because they have different values. So you want to be sensitive to that. The way that you're sensitive to that is by paying attention to people's behaviors, taking in the social signals that they are sending your way and saying, okay, what does that indicate about them? Paying attention to these signals, by the way, is also how you figure out how to demonstrate their values in your own presence. Now, there's lots of signals you can pay attention to. Some of the most obvious and easiest wins are etiquette signals, like what people are wearing. What is the dress code of these folks? Is it very casual? Is it very sharp? What people wear can reveal a lot about their working environment and about what they believe about themselves. For example, if I'm speaking to business groups, I'm going to come in with the crisply starched shirt and the smart blazer, probably a pair of high heels too, because it's kind of expected. It's the uniform. But I don't just speak to business groups. I give workshops to heavy construction and road maintenance crews up in northern Alberta. If I was to show up at a workshop there wearing a super crisp fussy blazer and 2-inch high heels, they would look at me and say, "You don't get me. You're totally out of touch. This isn't our reality. I need to be wearing shoes that look like I can cross a gravel parkade in them, like a gravel parking lot, without completely breaking my ankle." So that's what I do. I ditch the blazer. It's too formal for that group. And I wear clean sneakers instead of the high heels. Now I'm showing them that I get them. I get their value of practicality. I get their working environment. But you can go beyond dress code as well. Listen to how people speak. Pay attention to what they talk about, to the jargon they use, to how they treat each other. Is a group that you're working with obsessed with the newest technology and whatever it is they're doing, or following the latest research or processes? They likely value innovation. So you want to imbue innovation into your presence. Are these people constantly comparing sales figures or golf scores or whatever? They might value competition. Can you reflect a bit of that yourself? Are you at a function where people are flashing around business cards that look like this and are dropping names like hot potatoes? They're telling you something. They're telling you that they value credentials and probably want to hear about yours. They're telling you they value social credibility, possibly even status. That's stuff you might want to name drop with a group like that. So in order to do this, in order to adopt some of their social signals and their values without feeling gross, look for values that you share with them or values that are complementary to what you value as well, things that you can easily and comfortably adopt. And you only need to adopt 1 or 2 elements of their values to show that you get them. The trick with most of this stuff is to use a very light touch. You don't want to take it too far because your reflection of their values still needs to make sense with who you are, with your job, with your role within this group. For example, if you are a client account manager from a major bank and your typical clients, you're an expert in financing for farms or for an agricultural business, you wouldn't want to show up for an on-site visit with a potential ranching client dressed like this, right? You're trying too hard. You are taking it too far. But you also wouldn't come wearing heels if you were doing a walk around their yards to check out their buildings and their assets. You would find a happy medium. You would keep the blazer and the shirt, but wear pants that can get a bit of mud on the hem, and maybe a sensible pair of hikers. You're aiming for an image that makes sense to them, but still shows awareness of their context. Now, with everything that we're doing here, with all of this talk about what other people expect to see in leaders, the confidence and control and clarity, with talking about other people's values and focusing relentlessly on them, it can be very easy to feel as if you're losing yourself in all of it, like you're expected to put on a mask and perform for other people. Now, I won't lie, there is an element of performance to presence. Remember, this is a communication strategy. But just because you are performing doesn't mean it's fake or it's disingenuous. And that's where we come to the very important third set of facets on your presence diamond, and that is your authenticity, your authentic self, bringing in who you are so other people can see it. Now, authenticity in this case is not a buzzword. It is a necessity to be able to maintain your presence. It is really hard to keep up the performance of good leadership presence if you feel like this, right? Faking it is exhausting. People will know. You will be tired. You will feel awful after it. The aim with all of this is to still be showing a true version of you, one that's polished, that's planned, that's aimed towards the needs and sensibilities of your audience, yes, but that's still true to you. And this is also how you differentiate yourself from others. Now, this process of determining your authenticity really does involve looking into the mirror and asking yourself questions about who you are as a person and as a professional. Ask yourself questions like, what are my top personal and professional values? Is it integrity, community, sound fiscal decision-making? What elements of my personality do I want people to know? Do you really value your sense of humor and you want people to see that right away or know that you have a lot of empathy? What are your strengths? Do you want people to immediately recognize that you're highly analytical or that you're the kind of person that doesn't get stuck in the weeds, that is able to see the big picture very easily? Maybe there's elements of your identity that are very important for you to show, such as your background or your cultural heritage. Maybe there's beliefs or standards that you hold yourself to that you want to reinforce through your presence. Ask yourself these questions and brainstorm a big old list of as many as you can, 5, 10, 20. Aim for at least 5 though, trust me on that one. Figure this stuff out about yourself and then look at your list and say, okay, what's the top 1 or 2 that matter for the situation that I'm going into? Pick 1 or 2. You don't want to overthink it and try to do too much signaling. But which 1 or 2 traits that I've brainstormed are most important for the people and for the situation that I'm going into? And then look for ways of signaling that. You can get very specific or very creative, and we're going to look at some examples. They are all politicians because it's easy to study politicians to look at this kind of thing. Starting with former Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi. Every day that Nenshi was in office, he wore purple because that symbolized to him his commitment to a nonpartisan approach to his duty as mayor. He had to be willing to work equally with both liberals and conservatives at the provincial and federal level. He had to work with the reds and the blues. And what do you get when you mix red and blue? You get purple. It was a strong reminder to himself that this was his professional standard. And because people often did ask him, why do you always wear purple? It gave him an opportunity to tell this story and to have this be part of his presence and part of his brand. Another great example that I really like, again in the clothing department, is Jody Wilson-Raybould. She spent time as both a member of parliament as well as she is a judge. And she's a very sharp dresser. Very, very, very sharp. She always wore clothing that was within keeping of the dress code and etiquette of wherever she was, whether it was parliament or her work in law and as a judge. But being a member of an Indigenous West Coast nation, it was very important to her to show the prominence of her Indigenous heritage. So she would always wear, as you can see here, very, very prominent Indigenous art motifs and designs into whatever it was she was wearing. But she would incorporate it so it still suited the dress code and the etiquette of the people she was with. Beautifully done. But we do not need to limit ourselves to dress to express our authenticity. We can be authentic through our behavior. And the example I like here, again, regardless of politics, because it's about behavior, not politics, is Chrystia Freeland. She is very emotionally expressive. When she needs to be tough, she's as tough as nails, but she values being warm and showing people how she feels about them. This is the best example. This was during her time as trade minister many years ago. And after she became trade minister, she was able to complete a very important international trade deal that was started by the conservative government that was in before her. When she announced this trade deal, of course, there's the big round of applause, everyone stands up. She crossed the floor of the House of Commons to give her predecessor, Conservative MP Ed Fast, a great big hug to thank him for all the work that he did that laid the foundation for her to be able to complete this trade deal. It was a moment of emotional authenticity that also showed the value she placed on for good, strong, nonpartisan public service. So this kind of gesture, this sort of behavior demonstrates her values as a politician, and she does it through behavioral authenticity. So you need to ask yourself, what is it that I want to communicate? Is it my analytical mind? Okay, what does analytical look like? Is it my adventurous spirit? Okay, what does adventurous sound like? What sort of language would show my down-to-earth personality? What kind of behavior puts into the forefront my strong sense of justice? What authentic values for me do I want others to know quickly and instinctually? And how can I show that on the outside? Figuring this out takes experimentation. You are going to have to be willing to go into your mom's closet and try on all of those high heels and feel a little bit silly while you're doing it, because what you're doing is engaging in creative communication. I can't tell you what those looks or actions or speaking styles are. You have to figure that out on your own. So play around with how you speak, play around with how you dress, for how you express your emotions. Try things out. If you find that you're stuck, look for inspiration. Look to videos of other leaders or other professionals who you resonate with, whose presence you like, and then pick apart what they're doing. Figure out what those elements that you admire, what it is that they're doing that's speaking to you, and then see if you can try that out on yourself. The aim is not to become a copy of them. It's that you're looking for performance inspiration and ideas that you can take on. So you can try speaking like Adrienne Arsenault. You can try carrying yourself like Indra Nooyi, or expressing yourself, dressing, with the sort of sensibilities of Nahid Nenshi or Jody Wilson-Raybould. And if something works, if you try something and you think, yes, this is me, awesome, keep it, do it. See if you can make it even more you. If you try something and think, oh no, that doesn't work on me at all, I don't like how this feels, it doesn't feel authentic, that's fine. Ditch it and try something else. Experiment, experiment, experiment. And you don't need to feel like you are only ever going to focus on one or two items on that list that you brainstormed, because different facets of you as a leader, as a professional in the agricultural industry, are going to matter in different situations and for different groups of people. So learn how to express different elements of yourself, because that's what gives you the nimbleness to turn your diamond so that it's the right facet that's catching the light and sparkling at the right moment in time. It gives you nimbleness with how you use your leadership presence. And yeah, it's going to feel a little bit awkward at times, but that's part of the process. It's part of the self-discovery. And you will do a lot of deep thinking and a lot of self-discovery as you are tweaking and adjusting your presence, as you're practicing in front of the mirror or trying out different things. It is part of the journey. Leadership presence really is a journey. It's going to change. It's going to evolve as you grow in your career, as you evolve as a person. So something that works really well for you today or that worked for you 5 years ago might not work so well for you 5 years from now. Not because it wasn't a good choice at the time, but because you've grown. So be willing to engage with this idea of developing your leadership presence regularly throughout your career. Leadership presence isn't about having a magnetic personality. It's not about having buckets of charisma. It's about understanding the people around you and yourself, understanding the best in them and the best in you, and learning how to let those facets shine. It is a process, but it is worth the engagement. This helps everyone. This is a form of communication, and better communication helps us all. So get out there, stand proud, let your presence fill the room, and you absolutely will command our confidence. Now, as I always say at the end of my talks, do not keep what we've learned here secret. Don't be greedy with it. Everyone benefits from learning this stuff. So share these tips with others. By all means, check out the resources on my website and on my YouTube page. Don't be afraid to reach out to me by email if a question pops into your head next week or next month or heck next year. Reach out to me. I am here to help you with this. So with that, we still have about 9 minutes left together, and I'd like to thank everyone for being here today and to open the floor for questions.
Lauren, thank you so, so much. I have so many notes here and I have so many questions. We have such an engaged group today, and lots of comments came in, and especially extremely positive ones. One of them says, not a question, but love the suggestions for the confidence posture. Do you have any like really quick tips that somebody could use when they're going into a situation where they feel like I need a quick check?
Okay, quick tips for a quick check. The big thing is to first up check in with how you're feeling. Am I really anxious? Am I really nervous? Because then that will make you more aware of your body language. Then take deep breaths, that whole idea of counted breaths, like in for 5, out for 3. Whoops, there goes my hair. In for 5. It works well because it lowers your heart rate and makes it easier to be aware and present with what you're doing. And then, I hate the word hack, but this is totally a hack that I do, is I will hide in like a corridor or a bathroom or something, and I'll hold a plank position for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. Then I stand up, because a plank position, or you can even do it push against a wall, it gets your core engaged and gets your chest up. And then stand up or step away from the wall and see if you can still feel those muscles. Just tap into your muscles, then take a deep breath and walk into that room.
And as you told us, we all have abs, so this
we all
will
have
truly
abs.
work.
It does.
One of the comments that was made is of loving all of the examples of women in leadership positions that you shared with us. And too often we feel that women are told that we need to walk or talk or carry ourselves like a man. How do we dive into our authentic selves in these situations?
A lot of this is first up completely ignoring anyone who says that you have to walk or talk or do anything like a man or like someone else. The traits of leadership, the posture, the controlled speech, all of that, that is neither masculine or feminine. That's something that just looks good on everybody. But usually if you're being told that you need to be something other than you are, it's because the person who's telling you that doesn't have anything else with which to get you on. So you can be like, oh, really? Okay. Thank you for the suggestion. And then carry on. And if you're feeling really sassy, double down on whatever makes you feel proudly feminine or more like yourself and be like, this is who I am. So you can either learn to deal with it or just not deal with me at all. You don't need to do anything like a guy. If you want to, fill your boots. If you don't, that's fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the questions that came in, and this is truly a compliment to you. I noticed that you don't use filler words such as and This is something that makes people seem less confident. How can we move past filler words?
Okay. That was a lot of hard work. I won't lie, that's something that I worked on for a long time, especially within acting. Actually, that was very important for many of my meaner coaches. But the way that you can start to quickly eliminate them is to slow down your speech and to think, to pause. Those elements of clear, decisive speech help to fritter away the ums and the ahs. What ums and ahs are is it's your mouth, it's basically your brain trying to make your mouth stop saying things so that it has time to catch up and think. They're called non-meaningful vocal utterances in linguistics. And you can replace them with pauses. So when you notice that your brain is starting to click, like it doesn't want to find the next word, or that you're starting to and ah a lot, take that as a cue to close your mouth, take one breath in, and then speak again. You're slowing your brain down and you're finding the words. And that the ums and the ahs will start to drop out. So focus on the slower speech and on the pauses.
Very good. And bravo to you, because that is a lot of work to learn.
Stick with it. Once you have it, you have it. But don't be surprised that if you are very stressed or very tired, especially, the ums start coming up a lot because exhaustion makes it hard for us to think.
Absolutely. Do you have a suggestion for an online course or program that would focus on refining crisis communication for business leaders?
The one that pops into my mind, her name is, oh gosh, Molly McPherson. I went blank there. And I've actually been on her podcast a couple times. MollymacPherson. Molly McPherson. She does crisis communication. She's from the States. She's in, I believe, Massachusetts. She has an amazing online crisis communication course and a podcast that is totally worth listening to. A Canadian that I can recommend, his name is Warren Weeks, Weeks. He also has crisis communication, but specifically media training classes that you can take online that are outstanding for dealing with crisis communication.
So good. So many good suggestions. Okay. Here's a great question that just came in. How do I embrace and feel confident if something goes wrong as I command the room? Like a heel breaks or the mic stops working or I trip coming on stage. I promise I didn't ask that question, but how do you command the confidence in the room when things go awry?
Okay, I know you didn't ask that question. But for anyone who is thinking, oh yeah, that thing I did, it was so embarrassing. I have completely wiped out on cables on stage in front of a big keynote audience. I threw a handheld microphone at the audience once because I was really excited and gesturing and whipped it at them. I've tripped, I've stumbled, I've never broken a heel, but I have had them catch in gaps in the floorboards. When stuff like that happens, these are human things that go wrong. Problems with the slide advancement. I skipped ahead. And the way that you deal with them is go, wow, that thing just happened. Ha ha. And then move on. If you acknowledge it, it's no longer an elephant in the room. You don't need to pretend that it went smoothly. But you can make a quick joke. You can take the other shoe off. Well, that one gave out. I'm going to just take the other one off and keep going. And then you carry on. And it shows a lot of poise being able to deal with little mistakes like that. Don't feel like you have to pretend that it didn't happen and don't try to make up for it.
Absolutely. And I love, we're all human. Things like these happen. And when you can seem like a real human being in front of a stage full of people, or even on an online conference where you can't see them looking at you, but we know you're there, we're all human. We just make it. Like I just threw my pen over there. Maybe you didn't see, but I'm going to tell you it happened.
Happened. There's a great clip of Kelsey Grammer wiping out on stage in the most spectacular fashion. And I think that he fell off the side of the stage, actually. He got up and got back on and went, whoopsie, and carried on.
Right? We all know if we get bucked off, we get back on,
Yeah.
right? So that's all we have to do. Okay. How can I avoid projecting arrogance? I really struggle with this and it is so frustrating.
That's a very good question. If you can get feedback from your colleagues as to what it is that's projecting that, just ask them, hey, I'm trying to work on this, but I'm trying to figure out how to pull it back a little bit. Can you let me know when I'm coming across as arrogance and specifically what behavior is triggering it? It might have to do with something like your posture. It might have to do with eye contact, possibly that you don't make it or that you stare people down. The first step is to understand what it is you're doing that is inadvertently sending that signal. Then you want to look at practicing the opposite, becoming aware of when you're doing it and then saying, I'm going to do the opposite. So if the arrogance is a habit of, and I see a lot of the toffee nose, the nose in the air, I see it a lot. And you realize you're doing it, think, okay, I'm going to bring it down and recenter more than I normally would. Because when you overcorrect, you tend to find a happy medium. If it's that you tend to use words or language or jargon that other people don't understand and you catch yourself, okay, I'm going to pull it back and speak as simply as I can. And then you practice that. So step one is becoming aware of what it is that's sending the signal and then figuring out the opposite action to practice. And it might take a while. A lot of this stuff takes a lot of practice and time to really make it habitual, but it's worth the effort. And when I say practice, I mean 2 or 3 minutes at a time because it's exhausting. But just check in with yourself. 1 or 2 minutes, 3 or 4 times out of the day, you'll get it under your skin, no problem.
Such good advice. Okay, we're going overtime, but I need to ask this question. What advice do you have for people dealing with folks who are trying to talk over top of you and control the conversation?
Deep breaths for one. It's a trigger for me. Man, I get mad when that happens. I will start using physical gestures to show them visually that I'm not done speaking. I also use very direct and sustained eye contact. So a physical gesture can be something like this, can be something like that. It's usually almost like a stop sign. And then the eye contact, as I'm doing with the camera right now, becomes fixed. And that's a sign that you're now, it's the equivalent of puffing your chest out at them, right? And I find with that, it means that they have to start paying attention to you, and it does get uncomfortable at times. Then they might be more likely to give you the floor. When you do speak, as soon as you can get a word in, speak very slowly and with a lot of enunciation. Basically what I'm doing right now, because this increases the impression of gravitas, that your words have weight, and you maintain that eye contact while you're doing so. Then you keep going. It can be quite confrontational. I only bust that out when I am facing a real jerk who is doing it intentionally. Otherwise, you can ask people, you know what, we're starting to talk over each other. Lisa, how about if you finish that thought? Okay, I'm going to finish what I had to say. Judy, how about you? And then you can actually go in and then direct the conversation. Because sometimes if we're talking over each other, it's because we're excited. So you can also step in and guide the conversation like that, which is much less confrontational than the first version I showed you. First version is for jerks. Second version is for excited conversations.
Absolutely. And as soon as you said that, like the word leader just popped into my head. If you can direct a conversation, it shows leadership, and that shows the people around you that you care, you want the direction to go well, and that you respect the folks in the room. So,
Yeah.
oh, so
If
Lauren,
I may, I go
yeah,
into this actually a fair bit in my book, Unmute, because it is a huge problem in video conferences, especially due to the lack of body language. So if you want to dig deeper into this, grab the book. It's a really short read, and you will learn how to use it for both video conferences, that direction and the baton passing, as I call it, for video conferences, and it works for in-person as well.
That's amazing. Lauren, I think we could keep you here all day, but thank you so much for all of your expertise and knowledge that you've shared with us. And I feel like we're all going to leave here doing that Wonder Woman pose.
It feels good.
It feels good, real good.
Chest up, chest proud.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you again so much.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Well, everyone, that does it for our time here today. Lauren, thank you again so much for everything that you've given us, actionable insights and things that we can take forward to command our presence and conquer communication strategies. I have a little secret to tell you. I received word right before we logged on today that FCC will be returning later this year with even more amazing speakers to add their voice to this incredible women's series that we have been on this journey together. I'm so excited. So please keep an eye out for more information that is coming your way for more women's series from FCC. In a few days, you will receive a link to the recording of this presentation. So if you missed something, you want to share it with your friends, it will be in your inbox. You will receive shortly an email in your inbox with an evaluation form as well. FCC really values your feedback and helps them plan for future events. On behalf of FCC, thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful day.